Maintenance man here at Mr. Dog Poop Studios. You probably think I'm sitting on my lazy ass. Nope, I'm sitting on Mr. Dog Poop's couch. A couch that he bought as a prop. Now he's saying because it's a sofa bed, it's too heavy. He wants it on wheels. He wants the bed ripped out. Once again, Mr. Dog Poop buys a piece of crap, and I have to fix it. The reason the couch is so heavy is because it's a sofa bed. Pull off the cushions, and there's a bed underneath. The bed is supporting the cushions. By the time we pull all this weight out, we have nothing to support the cushions. So we're going to build a frame inside here, put some wheels on it, put it all back together. First thing we have to do is pull the bed out. We've already disconnected the screws. We're going to pull this, which is 90% of the weight. So removing this is going to make it a lot easier to move around the studio. So now it should be a lot lighter and a lot easier to move. Now that we took out most of the weight, the couch looks great. It's going to be easy to move. Only problem is nothing to support the cushions. So let's take a look at what we're working with here. I'm going to go ahead and flip this up. We've got legs on here that aren't even staying on. So we're going to go ahead and pull those off. We're going to go ahead and replace those with these casters. Now, we want 2 casters that are stationary and 2 casters that turn. And it's important that you put them on the same side. So the 2 stationary casters will go here. Now, if we make these crooked, if they're not parallel, when we go to push it, they're going to drag. So these need to be perfectly parallel here. And on the other side, we're going to let the wheels turn. And that'll allow us to spin the couch and steer it with 2 stationary wheels. How these go on is important. You can't just stick them on here, stick one here, stick one there. They have to be lined up properly. We're going to do that last. This back is made out of cardboard, and you can see here that it's not very stable. Once we take that bed out, we're taking a lot of the stability out and everything that was holding it together. So we need to build a new frame in here. To do that, we bought some 2x4s. Regular 2x4s, they're not that heavy. By the time we cut them down, we're going to put one in here, one across the back, one in the front, and then I have these bed springs. And these are basically slats from a cheap bed, but they're a little springy, they're bent. So we can put those across and support the cushions. We could use a piece of plywood. Plywood's going to be a little bit heavier. I bought some angles that we can use in here to do the corners. Put them in and keep the corners solid. Frame is going to be 59 inches. So we cut our 2 pieces. We want our deck to be here where our bed was, maybe a little bit lower. So we're going to come down maybe 1/2 inch from the top so that when we put these pieces in, they're going to push up against this and not come out. We need something in the back as well to hold them. But right now we want to get a frame in here. So it looks like our board ends here. So you only have about 2.5 inches, and we're coming down almost 3/4 of an inch. So there's not a lot to screw to. And we don't want to go through here and then have screws coming out the front. So we have to have the exact amount for the screw. So a 2.5 inch screw will come out literally exactly at the front. And I only have a 2.5 inch screw. So I found some washers and some 1/4 inch nuts, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch nut as a spacer. That's going to give us a little bit of room there so it doesn't go through the front, and this will likely not push that any further than that. Okay, so that holds, and that tightened up pretty good with just the washer. And I can't feel the screw coming through, so we don't need the spacer, and that should make it tight. Let me put a couple more in here. So if we don't put a washer on it, the screw is going to pull right through the wood. Once we get the entire frame built and put some bracing on it, it'll be super solid, and it won't be heavier than a couple extra 2x4s. Perfect. So that gives us our front piece. We're still wobbly because we haven't built a square frame. That fits in. Okay, so if I put the board back here, it is going to be too long and the slats are going to fall through. You can see it's too short. Look for lumber, found a 1/2-inch piece of scrap that we're going to put underneath this piece to get it up. Then we'll put another piece offset on top, and this will fit perfectly in there. So here's my board right down here that I need to screw into. Hopefully I can just put a screw right down through. A little nut on there as a spacer and a washer. Now we have a little bit of wood on the end here, so I'm going to take a shorter screw and try to toe nail it into that. I also want to put a board here between these two, and we don't really need it for support, but this is kind of rickety, and this will give us a little extra support, especially with some corner braces. I just cut those two pieces, so I definitely have to have a beer. And then we're going to have another board here at the same level as that. We're going to use these corner braces for construction. Our next piece will go in here like this with another corner brace, and our boards will sit on the top of this square frame, and then this is just backing to keep it from sliding out the back. So I will put in 2 screws to attach that to the side. We have our corners, so we're going to put one on the inside corner there, and then one on the back corner as soon as we cut that piece. That's going to give us a nice sturdy square frame to keep this from coming apart. And all you have to do is put that in the corner and put some screws in it. I think we're just going to use sheetrock screws, keep it simple. So this piece is going to go in here. The only issue I have is I put in 2 screws, put in these with washers because the screws were too long. We didn't want it to come out the back. So I need to line these up, and then I'm going to drill a hole so that it can fit over it. And all we have to do is hit it. That should give us an indentation where they are, and we will drill either with a paddle bit or a Forstner's bit into there so that it can go up tight to this. I'm going to go ahead and take a 1-inch Forstner's bit, line it up with the center. Not critical, just needs to be deep enough so that it can fit tight to the other board. And look at that, that goes in right perfect. And then I'm just going to put a couple screws in to hold it. We're going to put these right in here, hold it together. You might be asking why we didn't build the frame first and then put it in there, because it wouldn't be as tight. The furniture isn't perfect. If we build it in there, we can squeeze it in, and it'll be a lot stronger and tighter. Next thing I have to do is put on the wheels. So I've made a line here, straight with there, and it fits right in that center. We're going to center those wheels up there because this is where it's reinforced to be held. And those lines should be parallel. So when we go to put our wheels on, we'll just kind of keep it on that line. We could put it on the line if we wanted to be right on, but I think we can line it up pretty much by eye These are stainless steel, number 12 by 3/4. They don't have a lot in there. I don't want them to go way up. It's not perfect, doesn't have to be exact. These are just cheap casters, Harbor Freight. And there's not enough room in here to drill. We could have laid them out and drilled holes and tried to figure out how to get in the back and put bolts in, but what we need. 2 cheap casters on there. You can just eye these up, but it's always nice to have a line, a reference point. And this isn't exact. This is flopping around. The screws are moving the things. It's not perfect, but it's going to work. This one's going to be a lot easier to put screws in because we can actually move the things out of the way. So if we line that up, preferably with the center of the hole, this piece right here should be right there if possible. You notice these casters have locks on them to lock the wheels from rolling, and we're going to need that since we're using it on set if we don't want it to roll around as we're shooting. Somebody sits on it and rolls halfway across the room, that's going to be, well, funny. Same thing up here. That takes care of the casters. We flipped it over, we put the springs on. These are just used bed springs from a cheap bed mattress, and we use this instead of plywood for weight and hoping that that would give a little bit of spring to the cushions. These can kind of collapse, so we may want to use some zip ties and tie them to the end, stretch them out, or potentially put some screws in here and then stretch them to the other end, and the screws will hold them tight. But for now, we're just going to leave them in there, turning wheels on this side so we can steer it and push it back and forth, move it around, push it wherever we want. And it's super light now that the bed is out of it. So now we're going to be able to push this around the studio and we don't need it. Bring it back. Also, the wheels have locks, so we can lock these wheels. So with the wheels locked, yeah, I guess you could push it a little bit. We'll just have to put a guy behind it to hold it. So while we struggled just to move the bed, this whole couch being made out of cardboard, leather, and a few wood pieces, we probably added the most weight to it with the frame. But the frame is solid. It can now be moved around. We can put it on a shelf. And finally, lazy-ass maintenance man can sit down and have a beer. Now, Mr. Dog Poop said he bought this as a prop, but I think he needs it for when his wife kicks him out of the house. Is this?